Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we are investigating the Dublin Murder Squad.
Dublin Murder Squad.
And we are finishing up our discussion of the sixth book in the series, The Trespasser.
The last one.
The last one. This is it. This is our last book discussion. Next week we do a wrap-up episode, but
sad.
This is the beginning of the end for all of us, unless Tana French decides to grace us with another book, which would actually be
She did
very
come out
nice.
with another book in her other series this year.
Yes. So she has a Cal Hooper series that I haven't read. I read The Witch's Elm, which was referenced in one of these books, which was a kind of a blast from the past when someone was like, there was a body that was found in a witch elm once. And I was like, I read it about that.
I'm actually very intrigued about that series because of this series. So she has got me interested in her other works because I did like so many of these.
I own the other two. They're thick. They're chonkers.
Actually, these are chonkers too, because I checked out a couple of the physical copies and read the physical copies from the library rather than doing the audiobooks in this series. And I thought that they were all pretty chunky.
But I literally have mine right up there on my bookshelf. So I do want to read the other ones. I just never got around to. I think I read Witch Elm about 2 years ago. So maybe I'll pick one for Mega May. I haven't really done a poll to do a buddy read yet, but and it's April 12th as we're recording this. But I could always read one of those. That would be a nice Mega May.
Or you could do lighter. Count of Monte Cristo. That one is popular right now.
Yeah,
I've been working at a library.
So popular?
Well, I will tell you why. I've been working at a library recently, and they have had a lot of requests for the Count of Monte Cristo because it is now a PBS series, Count of Monte Cristo, and it looks pretty good. So people are wanting to read the book. Okay. So it has renewed interest because of the show that is on PBS.
I think I own the Count of Monte Cristo somewhere on my bookshelves. So that would be an easy one to do. So, although I
think that those are good ones to maybe tackle for buddy reads, honestly, because I'm always scared by classics.
That's fair. I think I used to do Mega May as a classic. I remember I read Middlemarch and I freaking loved Middlemarch. I thought that was such a good book. But it was, I just remember one woman being like, I'm ugly and that's okay. And I was like, she is a beautiful icon and I love her so much and everyone be nice to her. So, but yeah, before
the other thing I was going to ask you, have you heard about that new series on BBC, The Other Bennett Sister?
Yes, I have heard about it.
My coworker was telling me about it, and I am very interested in that as well. It's about Mary Bennett, and it has the guy that played Matt Cawthon in the Wheel of Time series is one of the love interests in this Other Bennett Sister, and I'm like, I think I will be tuning in for that somehow.
I want to tune in as well. I know it's not really available over here. You have to.
No, it's like a BritBox thing that we'll have to do BritBox for a month or something if we want to see it.
Well, I think I have. I actually think I have a subscription to BritBox. Yes, I think I have BritBox. So we could definitely watch that. We could maybe do a TV Tuesday on that. I feel like that would be something you and I would be super jazzed by. Although I kind of always a lot of stuff has come out for Mary Bennett because the Bennett sisters, everyone's obsessed with them. And a lot of people use her kind of as an asexual icon. And I do very much vibe with that interpretation of Mary Bennett, of her just being like, no, I am interested in literature and that's it. And I'm like, queer icon, Mary Bennett. Sure. But before we do a deep dive into all of those things eventually, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So actually recently, this is National Poetry Month, April is. And so one of the displays that my coworkers had put together in honor of National Poetry Month had a really interesting collection of poems, a book that was standing out to me. The cover was because it's a woman with her face seemingly clouded over with either smoke or a cloud. And the title of the collection of poems was A Suit or a Suitcase by Maggie Smith. And so I read this collection of poems, and every now and then I will pick, and when I say every now and then, I mean every 2 years or so, I'll pick up a collection of poems and read it. And I don't know why I don't read poetry more, because every time I do, I'm always so invested and I take a lot of meaning from the poems and everything. And maybe it's because I read a lot of poems that are written by women who are detailing life changes or connection with their body. Or I have read a handful of collections of poems written by Andrea Gibson and a couple of other queer poets that I have felt connected to as well, because a lot of them detail how they feel about their sexuality and things like that. And I think that those are like very interesting and things that I feel more personally connected to as a woman and everything. So but I always enjoy picking up collections of poetry. But this was a really great collection of poems, and I really liked it. There were a few moments in it that really stuck out to me, and one of them was a poem that was about this woman's relationship with her mother and how her mother was aging and losing her memory, seemingly dementia, and how she questioned like her mother looking at her, if she was seeing her, if she knew who she was. And I thought that was really heartbreaking and a really unique, and obviously I'm not detailing the poem in a very beautiful way, but it was a very beautifully written poem. And I think a lot of the things detailed in this collection were about life changes. There was another moment that really stuck out to me, which was her saying that her children sometimes wake up in the morning and they look older than they did the night before. And that was heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
I feel that a lot. And it was really a nice book to read because it was filled with a lot of like fear of change and
Yeah.
fear of time passing, but at the same time, joy with time passing. And I think that it's really unique to kind of see that duality of change and how we can be fearful of it, but still hopeful for it. And I
Yeah.
think that Maggie Smith did a really good job with this collection and putting together just some really beautiful reflections and really beautiful poems about womanhood and her relationship with her mother, her relationship with her children as a mother, and how growing older, her relationship with her body is changing too. So I really, really enjoyed it. And I need to pick up more poetry because I just always like it. So I don't ever consider myself someone that's like, oh, you know me, I read and write poems, but I really should because I always like them.
Yeah. No, I
So
think
if
you
anybody
should.
has any recs, send them my way.
I almost bought a book of poetry. I'm not as much of like of a poetry reader, but I did see Clint Smith's and I did think about
Hmm.
reading his because I had read his How the Word is Passed, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful and so well done. So I thought about picking up his stuff. I passed it by at the moment and I was like, well, maybe from the library, Hannah, because you aren't much of a
Hmm.
poetry reader. And libraries are a wonderful way to get into something that you're not used to and you don't know how much you don't want to
Yeah.
dive in. So,
And that's the other thing too that I've been really acknowledging too that libraries are great for it. And I've been talking about this with patrons that have been coming in too, is that a lot of people are, especially if they're getting into a new series or like trying out a new
hmm.
genre that they don't normally read, that they're trying to utilize their library for that because you know what? Books are expensive. Things
Yes.
are really expensive right now. People got to buy groceries. So,
Hmm.
you know what's affordable? Getting books at the library, especially if you're not for sure if you're going to like a new genre or a new book or a new series, especially because to invest in a whole series is a lot of money.
Right.
Looking at you, Matt Dinniman, where we want to love Crawler Carl, but we aren't sure if we're going to invest in 9 books right off the bat.
I did buy the first book of that, and my husband is pulling for
Uh-huh.
us to cover that next on the podcast.
Is he?
Yeah.
You know, it's very popular and not, I feel like it even has pretty high appeal at
Yes.
our local library that is fairly rural area and everything. It's been getting checked out a lot because we just got the whole series in at the library,
Oh,
but
nice.
a lot of people really love it. And I just listened to recently, Matt Dinniman was on SFF Addicts and Greta and MJ interviewed him. And it was a really fun interview. He seems
Oh,
like a lot of
good.
fun. And I don't know anything about this man besides what I heard in the interview
Right.
and just people being like, I love Dungeon Crawler Carl. But he seems delightful. And I hope that this series is great. I don't know that it's one of those things where sometimes things get so popular that I'm like, I can wait. I don't need to be its number one fan right now. And when the
You
hype
and I are very similar because I bought
gets
it and I
down,
was
I'll
like,
be like, sure.
I think I do want to read it in 2026, but it's like up on my like 26 for 26, and there are a lot more that I'm picking up during that time. So,
Sure. Right. You're willing to kind of bump others up on the list that maybe aren't
yes.
quite as popular.
Yes. Or, others that have been sitting on the list that are still very popular as I hold up
Oh yeah.
Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I
Yellowface is
started it
great.
today. So,
I think that
yeah.
one doesn't get as much everyone like loves Babel for good reason, but I feel like Yellowface is also like not talked about that much, and I think
Yeah.
it's so good.
I'm enjoying I'm only like 30 pages in, but it's a
Uh-huh.
good time. And I do remember everyone like I feel like people are I don't.
People were really mixed on Yellowface, actually.
Yeah, and I know there's been like some discourse on the internet about like what women are allowed to do, and I remember a lot of people were giving R.F. Kuang some like harsh feedback on the original character where they're like, she's so amazing and she does all this. And I was reading it. I was like, I don't know. This seems like a very well developed character that like we're seeing through the eyes of someone who's very jealous
Hmm.
of them. And it seems like it's a very limited view of her and they're not being very kind when
Yeah.
they do that read. Like, it's very interesting as I read through it. And I know some of
I
the
remember,
critiques.
I don't remember exactly how I felt at the time reading the book, but like as I'm reflecting back, I feel like I enjoyed the book, but I don't think it was one that I don't think it was her best in my opinion out of the ones that I have read.
Yeah.
But I do think I really enjoyed it, and I would consider it a thriller for sure
Oh, yeah. I
compared
would.
to
That's
other
what I'm reading
books
it
she's
as.
written.
So, yeah.
And I am not a thriller person, so I thought it was quite
Fair
good
enough.
so that R.F. Kuang can do it all. The other thing I've been enjoying, I finished up last one Laughing UK. Great show. Great show. I won't spoil it, but all of those people in this season, they were very hard to crack. And they had to pull out a lot of stops this season to like get people to laugh. And to the point where I was like, that doesn't seem fair with some of the contestants that I'm I don't know. I feel a little unsure on the way that they handled certain things because they
Mm,
were like purposely pulling certain contestants to the side and like going really hard on them to make them laugh just so they could get some people out. And I'm like,
got
that
it.
doesn't seem too fair. But
Oh.
I do think the way that it worked out, it probably would have shaken out that way anyways, just based on how everyone was kind of falling in line in terms of like who was going to laugh and who was going to last the longest. It probably would have shaken out that way. But this was a tough season where all of the comedians who were involved in this season were very good at keeping straight faces. And it was down to literally the last minute that
Oh, wow.
they had to, yeah, that they were running out of time and they had to pull out all the stops basically. But we were pretty happy with the way that it shook out. And then my husband and I watched the first episode of series or season 21 of Taskmaster, and
So did I. It
we
looks
love
fun.
it.
It's been a good season so far.
I'm only one episode in. We're like, it's
I know.
great.
It's great. No notes. I
Immediately
just
endeared to a new cast.
immediately endeared to a new cast. I love them all. I think you and I both love Joanna a lot. Like
I
from
love Joanna. So I'm a pretty big fan of Kumail Nanjiani. So I put even on like the day that the episode was going to come out, I put on Blue Sky and Instagram, Happy Kumail Nanjiani on Taskmaster Day to all who will be celebrating. And I really do love Kumail. I think he's very funny, and I'm very like into his relationship with his wife, where I think
I
that
mean, he
they
wrote
seem
an
so
Oscar
romantic.
nominated movie about their love life. So
The two of them wrote The Big
yeah, they
Sick
did.
together,
Yeah.
an independent film, and I would highly recommend people watch that
Oh
because I
yeah.
think that it's a great movie. Some really romantic stuff happened out through that movie and in their real lives, and
Yep.
I think it's a really interesting look at Kumail's background too and his relationship with Emily's parents, and their relationship in general. But he recently said something about how he thinks his purpose in life was to be put on this earth to love Emily, his wife. And I'm like, that's one of the most romantic things I've ever heard. Stop it, Kumail. Stop being so romantic. But I'm excited about this series. I was excited because he was going to be in it, but I did fall in love with Joanna immediately.
Yeah.
I love her so much. Her accent, her little Minions outfit, her
So
energy,
good.
how she can multitask. She's wonderful.
She was so good at the first group task, and then and then Alex is like, "Do you want to know
Do
why
you
you
know how
guys
you won?
won?" And they're like,
No,
"No," and we don't really care. Like,
we don't know how we won, but we'll take it.
uh, and I've been like watching that scene on repeat with the other two, Amy and I can't remember the man's name right now, but they're like, "He's
Joel.
so famous. He's so famous."
Uh-huh.
Like, it's so
And like every
cute.
time he would leave the room, they were like, he's so famous. And
It's so
Greg
funny when
makes
you
fun of them for
rewatch
being like,
it.
take that, fans. And he's like, you're two grown adults.
It's so funny because when like literally Joel immediately goes, "Oh my gosh, you're so famous," and like says it straight to
Uh-huh.
Camilla, and then he's just like, It's like that last scene in Eternals.
You've never seen it, is what Kumail says, which is hilarious. And
It's so funny.
it makes me laugh because I think Kumail had a lot of hopes for that movie to be.
Oh
I
yeah.
think a lot of the people that were in Eternals had a lot of hopes for that movie to be a bigger success. And somebody recently asked him, like, aren't you kind of glad that you don't have all this pressure being in more Marvel movies and everything like that? And Kumail was like, no,
No.
I wish we would have had. He was like, oh no, I have to be in Marvel movies and make billions of dollars and never have to work very hard. And,
Right. Like,
and
no.
so he was like, no, I absolutely wanted to be in a lot of Marvel movies. So I think even just the mention of Eternals kind of is a little bit like, oh, come on, you didn't
Bittersweet.
see
Yeah.
it. Like, and especially because a lot of things changed for him with that movie because
Yes.
he worked so hard to change his physique. And I think ever since then, he has been like subject to a lot of scrutiny and
Hmm.
comments surrounding his body and everything. So I think the discussion around Eternals, specifically surrounding Kumail, is very interesting. But I do think people need to lay off talking about his body. Like, just leave him alone.
He's just
Just
someone who decided he really liked getting fat. I did appreciate during the pandemic at one point he was on Wait, Don't Tell Me with
Mhm.
Emily. And she was like, oh, there was a moment where I was like, hey, honey, you're working out too much. Like, you have to stop. He was like,
Yeah.
I appreciate having that in my life where she was willing to be like,
Hmm.
I'm going to be your
You're
sounding
becoming
board.
obsessed.
You need to not do that anymore. And he was like,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Like,
Yeah. But I'm excited about this season. And even though I love Kumail, I seem to be on Team Joanna and want Joanna to win.
I think I might be on Team Joanna as well.
She is
So
so delightful. And I just love her. I,
she,
I want to be her best friend.
she's
Also,
amazing.
Amy Gledhill, is she not the most beautiful woman you've ever
She's
seen?
gorgeous. And I wanted her yellow pants so badly. Like she was sitting up
So
there
she
and I
was
was like,
on
I
Last
love
One
her
Laughing, and
pants.
I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll get to know this person before we see her on Taskmaster. And she obviously did a really good job on Last One Laughing because it seems like she's very loud and boisterous on Taskmaster and laughs a
Yes.
lot. So kudos to her for keeping such a straight face. But this is like such a beautiful woman. I cannot get over how beautiful she is. I love her hair, and she just has a perfect face.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
No,
don't know how
she's
to describe it besides this is
gorgeous.
such a beautiful woman. Her face is perfect.
Well, it's a very pretty cast this season. Sorry, not to like
Hmm.
bring, but like I was talking about Joel because I was like, he's a very like objectively pretty man. Like it's just
Yeah,
he has
he
a
is
very
actually.
specific, yeah, like it's very he almost has like uncanny valley prettiness where you're like, I
Hmm.
don't know if I can look directly at it because it feels a little
Sure,
too
sure.
perfect. So
He's
I feel
what
like
I
this
would
is a
refer
very
to as
good,
like Christmas commercial pretty. You know
yeah,
what I
that's
mean? Where they
good.
have to
Yeah.
put together like the perfect Christmas family. That's kind of what he looks like.
Yes. Especially with his like big smile and everything. Yes,
Hmm.
it's just like it's a very pretty
And then you
cast
have
this
Amy,
season.
who has like perfect hair, perfect face. Her outfit's on point. I loved her leopard outfit with the
Yes. The
fishnets
yellow
and
pants.
everything.
Those
Yeah,
oh
and the
oh
yellow pants that she had in studio. She looked
hmm
amazing. She always looks great, apparently. And she wore a really nice dress on Last One Laughing, too, that I thought she
Oh,
looked great
good.
in also. So she just has good style. But then
Oh,
we have
nice.
Joanna, who I think is beautiful as well. And she was
Yes.
in Love Actually as one of the people that was like doing a porno. Did you realize that
Oh,
was
yeah,
her?
I forgot that that was her. Well, we've talked about I think I talked about this on the podcast before. I didn't watch those scenes for so long growing up because it was inappropriate to watch naked people when it first came out, but my parents weren't going to make me
Um,
not be in the room. So I remember
feel
when
like you have
she's
to experience Love Actually.
you have to experience, well, that was a lot of my life because I was too young and all of my siblings were much older than me. So like
I'm
they didn't want to.
making fun of Love Actually because I
Oh,
don't think
yeah.
it's that good of a movie.
Oh, well, my parents actually love Love Actually. My dad to this
A
day
lot
makes
of
me watch
people
it with
really
him every
uphold it,
Christmas.
and I
Uh,
just don't get it.
it's so funny. We watch it literally every year. Like my husband's in like, you and your dad always watch Love Actually. I'm like, my dad loves Love Actually. So I'm
Some
not going to tell
people
him
are
like,
really
no.
on board with it, and
Um,
I'm just like, it's okay.
we grew up watching it a lot, but I remember like the final scene where she runs into the guy picking up his friend at the airport. I was always like, who
Uh-huh.
is this woman? I don't recognize her or um what's his
Martin
face
Sheen.
from yeah, Martin Sheen. And I was like, who are they? And then I became an adult and started watching that scene. And I was like, oh, a lot makes sense now. So yes, she
Or
is in Love
Martin Sheen.
Actually.
Martin Freeman is his name.
Martin Freeman,
Good
sorry.
Lord.
But and of course Armando is also Very cute.
I did love when Greg made fun of them overshooting the t-shirt cannon, where he was like, you have totally opposite ends of the spectrum, where you have the people going, oh yeah, that was awesome, and then you have Armando who says, very nice. And I thought that was so perfect.
Funny. It's a good season.
Did you watch any of the interviews that they posted beforehand?
I did not.
Okay, those are very funny. And Armando comes in with no shoes on. We don't know why.
Okay.
He just has no shoes on. And some of the comments are like, this is the exact energy that I'm expecting coming into this season. And just no shoes for reasons. I'm like, okay.
Beautiful.
But a lot of people have high hopes for this season, because a lot of people really love Series 7. A lot of people really love Series 14. And they're hoping that Series 21 is also going to be one that kind of knocks it out of the park.
Let's hope so.
I think they mostly all do. So,
I mean, I love all seasons. We literally
love all of them.
We got done watching that episode. People are like, Hannah and Laura are slowly just devolving into a Taskmaster podcast. And you know what? There are worse things out there in the world.
Yep.
But
you know what? It brings us joy.
We got done with that episode, and I literally started thinking about the task where the woman who once made Alex sit on a cake comes into the room with the two men, and it's all hops, and she goes, it's hop within a minute, and the two men just blatantly ignore her and keep going, and then 7 minutes in she starts hopping and gets through all 100. And
what's
Alex
her name? Lisa Tarbuck?
Yeah, Lisa Tarbuck. And it's so funny. And then so we watched that one, and then my sister-in-law was like, well, we have to watch the one where Ivo and Frank are locked together, and Frank is adding the numbers, and Ivo's like, Frank, I'm gonna level with you. I never thought it was that.
You know what? They were one of my favorite teams, honestly. I thought the combination of Ivo and Frank was so cute.
Well, and it all goes back to Frank was like, there's a thing called co-pilot syndrome, where a lot of plane crashes happen because the co-pilot doesn't want to be rude.
Yeah.
And he said that was him and Ivo, and it actually did kind of fit, because Ivo was always so flustered, but he didn't want to be rude. So
they were one of my favorite team combos. And I really liked how Frankie in the in-studio was like, I love this young man and I have nothing but respect for him, and I think he's so wonderful. And I was like, wow, I thought he was going to be kind of a grouchy contestant.
I know.
He's so sweet.
But no,
another series that I loved the team for was in Series 20, where we had Reese, Maisie, and she said,
oh gosh,
how about we just calm down for a moment?
Oh my God, he's angry.
The combination of those two was hilarious.
I
was always trying to calm him down.
I brought in Meadows. We actually are gonna restart we're gonna we haven't gotten too far into New Zealand, but I think we're gonna restart watching it again, because I remembered this one that I came up on my TikTok, where they're supposed to be putting things in order, and one of the women recognizes that it's the planets, because there's a blue toe in a trash bin and stuff, because it doesn't count anymore for Pluto. And she goes, oh yeah, autism rules, pattern recognition. And it shows her up against another man, and they go back to studio, and he goes, I think this means I might need to get tested. And the New Zealand version of Alex goes, that was the test. It's so amazing. Funny. And the Taskmaster is like, congratulations on the autism.
Amazing.
It's just so beautiful. It's such a good scene. So we're like, we really need to get back into the New Zealand Taskmaster to help out.
I haven't watched any of the New Zealand ones, and I don't know why I'm being like this, but I'm just
because we both love Greg and Alex so much.
I know. I think it is the Greg and Alex effect, honestly, where I'm just like, do I want to watch a show where Greg and Alex aren't there? No,
it's hard.
Not really.
Yeah. It's an interesting change, because you're getting used to the New Zealand humor and everything. So
yeah. But Hannah, what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Well, this weekend, Laura, I had a dream come true moment where I saw Florence and the Machine in concert. I love Florence and the Machine so much. It is one of those bands that has been with me since college. Even when Florence was up on stage, she's like, we've been doing this for 16 years. And I was like, yeah, I think I started listening to them when their first album came out. And I remember being at the job I had in college, and one of my friends was like, I really think you'll like Florence and the Machine. And I literally had a library card and I went and took the CD and put it on my iTunes because it was just that long ago
Hmm.
of how you got CDs. And since then, I've been obsessed with her, and her tickets are so expensive. So,
Really?
yeah, they've always been expensive. I mean, it's gone up throughout the years, and of course, resale values because Ticketmaster is a
Hmm.
joke and robbing everyone. But my
Yeah.
husband, she was coming to the States, and my husband was kind of like, she's my second favorite artist behind Sarah Bareilles. So he told me to get tickets, and it was just so beautiful. Like, I nearly cried at least 3 times. I held it back, but
Hmm.
like, her music is so good, and it's so wonderful to be like, it's the closest I've felt to almost a religious experience in a really long time.
Hmm.
You know how like music kind of affects you in church?
Sure.
Like, I feel like hers is very deep and emotional, and like she's such a storyteller. So she had these four dancers up on stage who were like pretty much witches that she saves throughout it with all of her
Hmm.
songs. And like there's a non-binary dancer who was doing such a beautiful job, and it's kind of like there are like different horror elements and different witchy elements and very earthy elements. And it was so amazing to see everyone came out in their best outfits, and people had flower crowns, and they were just in their feels. And there's certain songs like Shake It Off. I mean, there's just certain songs that remind me so much of my
Hmm.
alcoholism, and that's definitely one of them. Um, and like The Dog Days Are Over, she sang that, as well as Free, which is another song that just like has me in my feels all the time. And it's just so important to me. I love music so much. You're a huge music fan as well. I think we're both like in our feels, and it's a very important part to us. But like, I do think finding community and finding that live music is so wonderful. And also, shout out to her opener, who her name is Rachel Chinariri, and she is this beautiful singer. She is black and like has just the best vocal sounds. And
Hmm.
I've listened to some of her music and like support black artists like up and down. So, or all people of color, support any
Hmm.
marginalized group. Go check out Rachel's music because I also think her music is wonderful. Can we talk about Isaac is one of my favorite bops that I sing in the car constantly. And so overall, the concert was just so good. It was nice to kind of sit in that community. And thanks to my husband who sat for 40 minutes in a line so I could get a band t-shirt while I watched the opener.
Oh,
And
wow.
he literally made friends with the woman next to him. And bless his very, very sweet heart, where he was like, she was getting nervous that she wasn't going to get to see the band. And I was trying to figure out a creepy way to like ask for her number so I could buy it for her. We
Buy it
could meet
for
up
her.
later. And he was like, and I couldn't think, I was just sitting there like, do I
You're
get
like, I
my
don't know
wife
this
to give her?
woman.
And
Yeah.
like, and but they had both like made a mutual pact that if someone tried to buy their place in line, that they would just get the other person what they wanted and split the
Sure.
money. So that was a ton of fun and really important to me. I'm so glad I went. Um, and then for reading, I got a blind date with a book from Boswell, from our favorite bookseller, Ollie. And it turned out to be this book called Feast While You Can by Michaela Clements and Anjuli Datta. They are a couple, and both of them wrote this sapphic horror romance.
Mm.
And I believe they're from Berlin, or they live in Berlin. And it's this story about a woman named Angelina Sicko who was born and raised in this like little mountain town. And her family's kind of infamous for always being part of the mountain, and they have a lot of respect in the community. And
This
there's
is like kind
only
of an Appalachian
it's sort
mountains.
of, I would say it's more like European based since they're like
Okay.
German authors.
Okay. I wasn't
But I
sure. I couldn't. Uh, I didn't realize you had said where the region was,
yeah,
because I feel
but
like there are quite a few like Appalachian horrors as of late.
correct. And I do think it has an Appalachian horror kind of elements to it because it's
Hmm.
it's definitely supposed to be you don't know where the town is. It could be anywhere vibes. Like that was
Yeah.
very much what I got from reading it. But we have this woman who there's only ever one woman born in their family in a generation, and so she's the only
Mm.
woman born, and it's the rest are sons. Um, and she is very close with her brother. Her mother was the last sicko woman, and she kind of abandoned her children when they were getting older. Like she just went and lived somewhere else in the
Hmm.
town. And both her children were born to different fathers, and she won't tell Angelina about her dad. And it has like all this stuff. And then uh, her older brother's ex, Jack V, comes back to town after Jack V's dad dies. And you find out a lot about things and like, and you find out that these two women have been intertwined in each other's lives like
Okay.
throughout time. And Angelina very much doesn't like Jack V at the start of this novel because Jack V thinks that she's better than this town and she wanted to get
Hmm.
out. And you kind of figure out a lot of stuff is going on. And it has so many interesting elements that like, but even before the horror gets involved, of like Angelina loves her small town and she loves the people in it, but she and Jack V are both women of color and they're both lesbians
Hmm.
in a town that doesn't
Hmm.
have that much. And there's a lot of push and pull throughout the book of Jack V being like, hey, people are racist in this town and homophobic. They just aren't always like that towards you because you have family clout. And Angelina
Sure.
like also recognizes that, but also is insulted by the implication that there's something wrong with her town. And I think that those are both very interesting things to dissect and show
Hmm.
that like, and there are like different scenes where Angelina goes into the city and there are people who are rude to her and it very much hurts her and
Sure.
she was trying to find community. And so she's like, that kind of treatment is everywhere. It's not just in this
Hmm.
tiny town. And just because you had this experience doesn't mean that it doesn't happen all the time. And I
Hmm.
think that it was a very interesting look at community and finding space.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, there is an evil monster that comes out of a pit and starts stalking Angelina and getting in her head. And the only person who can keep it away from her is Jagvi, and they are thrown
Hmm.
together in that. So it's
It sounds fascinating.
it's really good. Like I was it's a very visceral book and there were certain scenes where like I almost missed something and I would reread sections just so I didn't miss anything. And it's just it's wild, it's messy. I said like, "Oh, the two messy lesbians at the beginning and very messy throughout the book." So, I very much enjoyed it. I was happy to have gotten this through a blind date with the book because I'm not sure it's something I would have ever picked up for myself.
Sure.
But I enjoyed the entire thing, and I've been getting into Appalachian horror type like this, like you
Hmm.
said. So,
Hmm.
I highly recommend. I don't think a lot of people know about this book, but I highly like go get it if you like horror. It's a good one to get into. So, um, well done and great
So
rec,
there
Ollie.
is actually
So,
this podcast that is popular with some of my coworkers called The Old Gods of Appalachia.
oh,
And
okay,
it's like a horror fiction podcast. And I
oh,
don't know if
that's
you listen
fun.
to fictional podcasts, but when you were talking about a lot of the things there, I was like, that's giving me a lot of the vibes of like the stories that my coworkers have talked about with this
Yeah.
podcast.
Well, you should tell your coworkers to get this book because they
I
might try,
will.
like, hey guys, we got this. And it's much more
Sounds like right up
European,
their
but
alley.
like, yeah, it's really good. And the monster is very interesting. So, and there are very sad moments, including
Hmm.
this. Angelina has a dog that she calls my dog, and everyone else calls your dog, and that's the dog's name. And it's very cute, but very
Oh,
there are certain sad scenes. So poor your dog because it's not my dog, it's Angelina's dog.
no.
Um, but yeah, so that's really what I've been enjoying lately, including I did play a board game recently called
Hmm.
Clank that I sent you a photo of, and that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. It's like a deck building game of trying
Okay.
to you have to go into the depths of the like dungeons or underworld. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's dungeons
Hmm.
and get a talisman and bring it all the way back to the top without dying. And you have different
Okay.
cards you can play and you sometimes have to clink something and pull like these stones from a bag, and whoever's heart health is on there is one step closer to dying, and you have to die. But you have to die if you're going to die. You need to die after you get out of the dungeons because if you die in the dungeons, you
Then
automatically lose the game.
you're
Uh,
trapped in there basically.
yeah, and there's been a lot of extension packs on this one. I think it's kind of an up and coming game. But it's one you and I should try to play together because I know
Do they have it
it's
on BGA?
I don't know. I didn't check. I think I might have checked, and they might not have it yet. But
It might be on there.
yeah, it might be on there. So we'll have to
Board
play it
Game Arena.
sometimes. Check it
Clink.
out, everyone. We are a
Looks like it is
Taskmaster,
on
and
there.
oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll have to play it sometime. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah.
it sounds like this blog is saying it's one of the best ones
Oh,
on
good.
BGA. So
And
cool.
it's relatively easy to play. I would say like
I'll have to
it's
do
not
a tutorial to learn
tutorial.
how to play
Yeah.
it.
All right, sounds good. So, yeah. And with that, Laura, shall we dive into our final book discussion?
Let's do it.
So, I know when you talked about this book, you said it was very triggering because of the discussion of um, just
Honestly, a
math.
lot of the sexism
Yeah, the
is very
sexism.
triggering to me. I feel like uh, it got worse in 2020 during the pandemic, like the height of the pandemic. I understand the pandemic is ongoing. It's never going to end. And I just like to clarify that every time because I feel like sometimes we talk about the pandemic as like it's done, and I just
Lots of
need to
people
clarify.
still wear
We understand
masks.
it's
Like,
not
yeah,
done,
yeah,
and disabled people are obviously still at huge risk.
correct.
Um, but anyways, I feel like in the height of 2020 and 2021, where we still had a lot of fear and anxiety, and there was a lot of political tension happening. I dealt with a lot of sexism at my
Hmm.
workplace, and it continued and had only started to like calm down. I would say, like I don't know. It didn't really even calm down too much, but it seemed like people felt emboldened to be more sexist in
Yeah.
2020 when they were dealing with a lot of fear and uncertainty. But and now it's gotten probably about the same, if not worse, because people just think they have permission to be awful. But I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of the things that I was like reading in this book were really affecting me to the point where I was honestly, I was connecting more with the sexism that she was experiencing because it was so relevant to what I have
Yeah.
experienced through my workplace and this sexism that I've experienced. And let me be clear too, I've mentioned before, like my husband and I own a business. The sexism I have experienced is customers onto me, not
Right.
my husband. But yeah, it was very difficult to read a lot of this. And I think even too, like I think I remember mentioning last week maybe like some of the attitudes of like Breslin being a little icky feeling to me because it seemed like we have a lot of these people like him now that are quick to throw away their morals to uphold a team or uphold a certain appearance rather
Yeah.
than do the right thing. And so a lot of those things were kind of triggering and hard to read. And I don't think that they're bad or that French should not have included them. I think that they were excellent and needed to be written and were excellent for developing the characters. It's just very difficult to read with our current like political climate and like some of my own personal experiences dealing with awful men.
Yeah. No, and I think this is a good book to show that. I think I struggled a little bit at the end because it almost felt like French in some cases was scapegoating other police officers to make this one evil Detective Roach the like comeuppance guy in order to facilitate Conway staying later. And that's a frustration I have
Hmm.
with the plot because the thing is like, and I don't know if French meant to do this or not, but it doesn't excuse the rest of the squad that it was just one guy doing this because no one stood up to him. And that is still incredibly relevant to the sexism and racism that
Hmm.
is taking place because there
Yes.
is an intersectionality to the way Conway is being treated that a lot of people stood by and thought that this was just something that someone else should deal with and not them.
Hmm.
And that is deeply affecting because it is what happens in the modern world. And I feel like,
When people have a certain amount of privilege, they are privileged enough to not have to care about other
mhm,
people or other situations. And it's alarming and incredibly frustrating to see that play out in the real world and then also see those types of things play out in a fictional book too.
yeah.
You want to have a good guy that's going to stand up for other people, that's going to be angry, that's going to fight, and we didn't get that here.
No. And I was very frustrated with that, but it is a good look at the way a system fails people, and especially fails people in marginalized groups, because everyone else was just trying to get someone else to take a stand. And the only men who were willing to do so at the end of the day were doing so because it benefited them to get in her good graces. And so it wasn't even out of the goodness of their hearts, it was to try to get her off of their track. And that's just so devastating.
I also think this book may have been one of the most interesting looks into the police force
Yes.
out of any of the books, honestly, because this one is the one that felt the least like propaganda and the
Yes.
most like a true reflection of a system that is incredibly bad,
Problematic.
where
Yeah.
we have people involved who are power hungry, who are covering up horrible acts that other people within their squad have committed, who are more connected to their fraternity, their brotherhood, than they are actually upholding the standards of their career that they are supposed to be protecting and serving others, and they're not
Right.
doing that. So yeah, I think this one was maybe the one that I appreciated the most from the standpoint of the look that it had at the policing district
Yes.
and the murder squad.
And I think it was important that this kind of came up because the
Yeah.
only other, and this is the only other female centric novel out of
Mm-hmm.
the other six. So it is an important one where it's Cassie was someone who was much more interested in kind of playing the game and she got along with everyone. And we didn't particularly like Cassie, but
Mm-hmm.
Conway, I think we felt a lot
I
more
started out
for.
liking Cassie in the first book, but
Yes. And then in the
that
second book,
fell
it was
apart.
just a mess. But like Conway is someone who we very much like saw ourselves in a lot of different ways, but
Mm-hmm.
also she is willing to reflect back to the police station what her experience was. And because she was in this
Yeah.
marginalized group, she was treated differently. So it was no longer this bastion of goodness or bastion of cops wanting to do the right thing and having arguments philosophically. And I do think that French wanted to dissect that and look at it of like,
Mm-hmm.
where is the moral line that people cross when they decide that the fraternity is more important than their actual job and the actual fight for
Yep.
justice? Because that was Breslin, that was McCann, and that even was O'Kelly to a certain point where he definitely wanted to catch whoever did it, but he
Mm-hmm.
was willing to get dirty in order to save
Yep.
face for one of his detectives, and that's not right. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And the I don't know why it took so long to have this type of look at the
I think it was a
police
product
and
of the
those
time. Like,
the detectives. That's likely it. But
yeah,
it felt like a lot of the other books, when there were any sort of criticisms to be made, it was very much an individual failing rather than a systemic failing. And
yes.
I think that is honestly a failure in itself to f- put the blame back on an individual rather than an entire system that is
Yes.
bringing in people who are unqualified and morally bankrupt into
Hmm.
these situations.
No, I agree. I think it was an important novel to close with. And it's interesting that it was the second of Tana French's novels that I read because I read In the Woods first and then this one. And
Hmm.
I think there's
Okay.
such huge like juxtapositions. But this one, it
Yeah.
was so important to kind of have the final death knell on our Dublin murder
Hmm.
squad to say, it's kind of rotten from within because O'Kelly was this character we met throughout all of these other books. And I don't
Yep.
think Breslin or McCann were technically introduced before now, but it is,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So it is interesting that we started with O'Kelly and O'Kelly was seen as kind of this hard staking person. And there were moments where Cassie was like, I
Hmm.
think he might be sexist. I think,
Yep.
but we kind of saw that at the beginning and we had inklings of it. But in this one, it really, the roosters came home to roost.
Yeah.
And I don't see O'Kelly having a job after. I think he probably has to step down after this because of what happened and
Hmm.
his
I mean, I think he
involvement.
absolutely has to. I think that the ramifications of their I think we're supposed to assume that the ramifications of them trying to cover up for each other and play this buddy
Hmm.
game are that they lose their jobs and have to leave the squad in disgrace of sorts.
Yeah.
And whether they feel disgraced or whether they feel guilty about that, I don't know. They may just be like, oh man, I lost my job because of this black lady that doesn't like me. And
Right.
it could be that.
Yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
think
it
that
could
will
be
be it. I
that.
think that'll be Breslin for sure because I think
Yeah.
Breslin
Because they treated her with such disrespect that I do
mhm.
feel like that could be the take. And it's awful. But
Yeah.
I don't know that it's something where like we had Scorcher who stepped away from his job because he was like, I feel uncomfortable with what I have done. And I don't think that I am qualified to do this anymore. So I think it's a very opposite situation here where we have people who are like, well, great. Now we do have to turn in our buddy, even though we don't want to. So it's a very different situation and one that I still think there's going to be sexist and racist about and try to blame it on Antoinette.
No, I do think it was a little jarring to have Antoinette kind of end of like maybe I will stay at the murder squad because like honey, I think this is like a step zero. Like I think it will not be the same and I think in the end people end up blaming someone like Antoinette for stuff like this coming out when it wasn't her
You know,
fault
I
at
think it
all.
would be a really difficult situation to remain in that
Yeah.
environment, knowing the kind of camaraderie that your coworkers had
Hmm.
and how they left and know the involvement that you had. I would feel uncomfortable if I were her.
Yeah.
And this is me saying I love that character and I don't think she did a damn thing wrong.
No.
I think she was absolutely right in everything that she did and I feel awful that she had to question herself and that she doubted that she was capable of doing her job at times and everything because of the way that they treated her. I think that is horrendous. But I do think that if I were in her shoes, I would feel very uncomfortable
Hmm.
remaining in that workplace.
Yeah, I agree. And I
I
think it
would
would have
question her
been
safety too.
yeah. It was a very weird ending because I kind of was like, I think in a week she leaves. Like I think she tries to go in and I think she's treated differently. And
You know,
I don't even
when you
know
pointed it out, it weirdly sounded more like it ended on a high note than I had read it initially.
yeah.
Because I think when I had finished reading it, I was like, oh, I liked the ending. And then all of a sudden, when you were pointing it out to me in the last episode, I was like, oh, actually, no, I hate this. Why didn't I catch this? But I think it weirdly was like French was trying to like tie it up too neatly, where it was like,
Yeah.
I want this series to end on a high note where Antoinette gets to still be in her job. And I do think, honestly, maybe we would have liked it more if she was like, I'm still leaving because I can't handle being here.
Well, and like she's such a dynamic character because there are moments where I'm just like, ooh, like it's such a gut punch. Like Morn when they have their fight and he's like, I'm so sick of trying to keep you peppy and happy. And it was one of those fights where I was like, I totally understand where he's coming from in the moment where he probably has been doing this, but I also understand where that's devastating news for her, where she was like, I thought we were good partners. I thought we liked each other. And all of a sudden I'm finding out this entire time he's been doing this for me like that is a natural thing for people to do, but it does feel deeply hurtful when you hear it, when you're like, oh, you were thinking that I needed that. That sucks.
Hmm.
But like
Their
it's so
relationship is fascinating as
yeah.
well.
Well, and that was kind of the other part of it where she's like, well, Morn and I are good partners now. And I'm like, but yeah, yes, you guys are good partners and you seem to have like a good connection to one another, but that doesn't mean that you guys will be treated the same at the end of this because you are still a woman and a woman of color. And Morn is still someone who is palatable to people. And that's something you've noticed
And
about him. And like
and I think
he,
that's where the
yeah.
huge miscommunication exists there, where it's like Antoinette feels almost betrayed by Morin at times throughout this novel
Mhm.
because she did think that they were close. She did think that he was in her corner. And at the same time, he is never going to be able to understand what it is like to be a black woman working
Yes.
on that squad.
Yes. Or she may be Middle East. I can't remember. They
You're
don't really
right.
identify
I think
her
a person
dad.
of color.
Yeah, a
I'm
person of
sorry.
color.
Yeah.
But like,
I think she is just I don't know if black is the correct term. I think you're right that she is a person of color, a mixed person.
yeah, because if her dad's never technically identified, which is interesting that
Correct.
and I did like that she did meet the dad and she was just like, "You're useless. I don't need to know you." And I'm like,
Hmm.
great, great closure for her. But um, it is interesting how her and Morn's dynamic worked because he kind of got to choose to enter into this with her, which is good because, white people should move out of their own discomfort to help
Hmm.
marginalized people. But he still got to choose it, and he is not in as much danger as she is. Like,
Hmm.
it is interesting to
It's
have their
like we were
dynamic and have
saying,
them
like
both
there's a
in it
certain amount of
together.
privilege that allows you to not care and to remain oblivious. And I think
Yes.
that Morin has that amount of
Yes.
privilege that he is able to kind of maintain this level of obliviousness to be like, oh, you're dealing with that, Antoinette? I thought you were just like PMSing. Okay.
Yeah, he does, and that is the thing of like he's. It's weird that we have the Breslin moment where he's like, "I know the squad's giving you a hard time. Why didn't Morn tell you these things?" And they kind of come to terms with like him saying, I didn't know what you knew or didn't know. I didn't really want to like overstep." And it's like, but why didn't you want to overstep?
Right.
Like, why were you trying? It kind of felt a little naive to be like, we're gonna bridge the gap through my own happiness and my own go-getter of making friends with others. And you're like, more, that's not realistic for where the squad is obviously at. And yes,
Hmm.
I don't think you can fight your way into people accepting you, but you can recognize that like that's not what's happening to Antoinette. And she's being
Right.
horribly like harassed in this. Like someone urinated in her locker that we find out
Hmm.
about. And it just kind of goes unsaid that because Morn's a good guy, it's kind of all forgiven. And I think that's an interesting take.
Yeah. It's also tricky though, because at the same time, she's detailing like how they have such a close relationship and everything like
Mhm.
that. So I don't know. Sometimes people are more willing to forgive in these types of situations if they are close. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to gauge because we're just reading this and we don't really know the depths of their relationship.
Right.
But it does seem uncomfortable that that would exist, that it would be something that she would just kind of like, all is forgiven, even
Yeah.
though you blatantly seem to ignore deeply hurtful things that happened to me. Okay.
Yeah. I just don't know how to take that. I really didn't know how to take the Morn character of this book. Like, yeah, he's an
Their
interesting
relationship is
take.
fascinating to me because on one hand, I like kind of value that they do get along and seem to trust each other and work together well because he does end up supporting her
Yeah.
in ways when she's trying to get like evidence and trying to move forward with the case. And she does have him where she can lean on him that he does trust her judgment.
Right.
And when she's like, something's wrong here, like Breslin being a weirdo. So she does have that, but at the same time, like you said, there's just so many other things that happen where it's just like, Lauren, you're just not being a good friend.
No. It is, yeah, it's a little weird. It
Or
feels,
coworker, honestly, like even removing the friend level, if we just say that they're coworkers, you have a certain duty to your partner, I would assume, to be a decent person.
yeah. I feel like at the end of the day, I mean, this book came out in 2016, around the time of the Me Too movement. It kind of feels almost a little half baked. And again, it's a moment of its time, of
Hmm.
like, it's around this time that people start critiquing the police more. It's around this time that people
Hmm.
start criticizing sexism or racism. But I feel like it's all still pretty early for white people to get in on that conversation, or many
Hmm.
white people to get on that
Hmm.
conversation. And it feels like Tana French had these ideas percolating, but they weren't fully baked yet. And I
Sure.
think that's where our confusion is coming in, where we're like, there's a lot of good ideas here, but it feels like she
Yeah.
it almost wasn't going hard enough of like,
And it's weird to say a product of its time from just 10 years ago, but
yeah,
so much has happened in that time in terms of like political justice and just
yes.
social justice that we do kind of have a different understanding of what it means to be politically helpful, socially
Yes.
helpful, to not put our friends who are people of color in dangerous situations.
Hmm.
If we are someone who is a more privileged person, we need to be on the front lines, those
Yes.
types of situations. So, yeah, I do think you're right that it is kind of a product of its time, which is
Yeah.
so weird to be like 10 years ago. Oh, back in the prehistoric area.
Back when I was 22. Like, where you're just
Hmm.
sitting there like, yeah, I guess that is how old I was. And that's
Hmm.
wild to think, or no, 26. Sorry, 10 years ago, I'm 26. But like, it, it is very much a product of its time.
Yeah.
And it feels weird because we've just come so far in this that I think that's where you're and my friend, because I think when I first read this, I also didn't read the ending as that bad. But when I was
Hmm.
reading it again, I was like, why is she like, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm back for another round? Because I'm like, I
I
don't
guess
think
that's
that's,
interesting too, since this is
yeah,
your reread. Were there things that you remembered feeling differently about back then than you do
yeah.
now? Like specific things?
I remember it felt, and again, like this, I probably read it around 2016, 2017 when it first came out.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
I probably read it more, and this is me being honest and very vulnerable. Guys,
Sure.
I've changed a lot, and there are a lot of problems and ways I'm still growing. But I probably saw it more as like, oh gosh, it's so sad that these two police officers were corrupt. And I probably didn't look at it on the institutional level of like, no, these
Hmm.
are people who are willing to cover stuff up to make sure that the squad was protected first.
Yeah.
And that is an institutional problem that happens to this day. Like, we were part of a sorority. There were definitely people who had the sorority first lines. Like, it happens in any
Oh
type,
yeah.
it happens in any type of group. Like, we're not saying that this is
Hmm.
just police officers.
It's not
However,
just the police, no.
police officers have a very specific power dynamic and power differentiation
Hmm.
from everyday people. And
Hmm.
so I probably didn't read it as much of like as the institutional issue. And this was me post law school. So I
Sure.
could have, I just failed to. And I
Hmm.
do think that that was a personal failing that I've kind of grown and changed from. But I
Hmm.
probably didn't read that much into it. Yeah, I think I probably kind of read. I don't think I felt as tied to the Antoinette character as I did on this reread, just because she was probably just another character for me.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I had, because we're in that weird sphere of I had reviews for the other books because I had my bookstagram around that time. So
Hmm.
I probably
Hmm.
don't even have an original review of this book because it wasn't even during that time that I was writing
Okay.
reviews. So, yeah, I just have a rating for this one and I rated it 4 stars. And this time around, I do think it's a 5-star book.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's an
It's
interest.
interesting how I
Yeah.
think reflecting on like a reread like this, it's interesting how just the time that you are in can change your opinion of a book.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a really good look at that because as you've been saying, like 2016, like that was a lot has happened in
Yeah.
these past 10 years and we've aged. And but at the same time, like and I hope that everyone will give us grace, when you were saying like I've changed as a person, whatever. I hope, that people would give me a lot of grace in the amount of things that I've had to unlearn and learn in my own journey. But I do think that it's interesting to like look back at this and think, oh, well, I might not have noticed this before,
Yeah.
and I might have just kind of glossed over that and thought that this wasn't a big deal. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I definitely think I was a little bit, and I know I read this in my, like, in a book club setting. And I remember we all thought, this is so bad, but we all thought it was too long. Like, that is the one thing I
Okay.
remember about this. And this time around, I was like, I didn't feel this
I
was
don't
too
think this
long.
one is too long. The
Yeah.
last one definitely was too long.
Laura wanted a chapter breakdown of
Oh man.
how Morn got on the squad, and that's about it. But yeah, this one didn't feel long on a reread. I think when I
Hmm.
first read it, I read it very much as a murder mystery instead of like, this is a dissection of corrupt police officers
Yes.
and their work and how
Mhm.
the system can fail others. Because Ashlyn was a character who was failed multiple times
Yes.
because a police officer decided A, he liked her mom and didn't
Hmm.
want to hurt her feelings, and B, like, then liked the control of having Ashlyn in his life in the way that he wanted her there. Because that is,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like we talked
We
about
have
the
not talked at
sexism
all
and
about the murder of this book because we've been so in depth on the police in this, depicted in this, which I think is telling of our current timeline, that we're very much concerned about systems. But I think you're absolutely right that the systems also affect the characters like Ashlyn, who have not been able to receive the type of help that they needed and were pushed off because of the people that were in place in these systems that were supposed to help and did not. And then it becomes an extra layer of interesting when I say interesting, it's not like good interesting, it's bad interesting. But because we are dealing with a man who does consider women to be property, has a somewhat abusive relationship with her. I guess I could consider this an abusive relationship because he does see her as like property.
He was controlling of her time and space. She was expected to cater to his every whim, and she did that because she thought she was playing a part. But at the same time, he got off on that. Like, he wanted that relationship, and when it shattered and she rejected him, he couldn't take, like, that is what made him kill her, and he killed her in an incredibly violent way. And that is the one time that Breslin has a crack in his surface, is when he hears about how his partner killed Ashlyn. And I think he knows that his partner did that. Everything points to it, but he still wants to protect him, and that is the problem.
Yeah, McCann, in my mind, there's not much to say there besides this is a man who I think just doesn't understand himself and holds himself up on a pedestal, if that makes sense. But in a weird way, they've all kind of, in their little boys clubs, done this to each other, where they consider each other to be great. The way that they talk about each other and refer to each other as like squeaky clean or Boy Scouts or great family men, that type of thing. That type of rhetoric is strange when we're dealing with people who are willing to cover up a murder and blame an innocent person, to be referring to them as great guys and that type of thing. It really is.
Or this bothersome dame who pushed him to it. Like, it's so weird that their entire lives is investigating murders and putting the bad guys away. And then when one of them does it, there is an excuse as to why. And it kind of brings back, if you talk about Tana French and her mirroring. At the beginning of this novel, we hear about domestics a lot, about how they keep getting put on these domestics of just straightforward, man wants control over his wife and kills her. That is what this is at the end of the day. The biggest thing about it is the power structure that was in play that almost allowed a guilty man to go free.
Yes. Yeah, and put an innocent man away. But we need to also mention that the innocent man is doing things that are not okay. He's stalking a woman, and that's kind of glossed over too quickly.
That one was glossed over. I remember being weirded out when I first read this and being like, why was that like...
It's very Joe Goldberg. We mentioned that previously.
Yeah. Hello,
but
you. We said Tana French was inspired.
And he's a bookseller. Like,
I don't know. And I didn't love the way Tana French, where he was like, I just wanted to make her a reality. And it's like, nope, that's still weird, still inappropriate. And it still would have ruined their relationship if she had ever found out about it, because it's such a violation to be like, I was watching you. Like, it's so inappropriate.
Ick.
Yeah, I really hated Rory this time around. So I remember being creeped out by him before, but like, it just gets worse as time goes. And honestly, it kind of shows how Ashlyn, like, because at the time we meet her, she is a conventionally attractive, blonde, pretty, thin woman. And it shows how kind of like men often see women as objects when they look like that, or they just don't see them as people, like.
Absolutely. If you look a certain way, you're considered not as smart. And that is awful. Like, it blows my mind that people who are, I shouldn't say, I guess you can say people, because I think attractive people in general are treated differently a lot of the time, but especially women are treated differently when they are more attractive. And we do see women being treated more like objects because they are pretty and they should just be, for men's entertainment. And
Yes. And I think Ashlyn definitely fell into that. And that is why these men were treating her like this. It happened again and again. And it is showing a
and I
very
think that's
stark
why
look at
McCann is
women.
so shocked too by all of this. He can't believe that Ashlyn could possibly come up with
Mhm.
something like this, that she could be anything more than sweet little Ashlyn, who he was in love with, that
Mhm.
they were in love and all this. And it's like, no, she hated your guts. She was trying to ruin your life. And I
Yeah.
think that that's also interesting too, that we have, I shouldn't say interesting. It's something that exists too, where we have attractive women who are seen as just perfect little angels, that they can
Mhm.
never do anything wrong. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, she
Everyone is
was out.
complicated.
She was on her revenge arc.
Yep. And and it did like cost her her life. And it's also interesting
Hmm.
of like just people talk about toxic masculinity a lot. And it kind of comes into play here where like immediately McCann is like, oh, Lucy was obsessed with Ashlyn and she was just a huge lesbian. And it's just like all of these different things of how women are treated on every level of like
Hmm.
Conway is a problem until she can help them facilitate what they need to
Yep.
get done. Ashlyn is a pretty thing to have on your arm until she rejects him. Lucy is in the background until she could potentially hurt him. And like there is
Hmm.
a devaluation of women from the top down in this book.
Yes.
And I'm glad we get Conway's perspective in this because it is like the biggest discussion of like the intersectionality of race and sex when we have something like this, because that is something that French
Hmm.
points out is a lot of this is facilitated by who Conway is as a person and what it allows
Hmm.
other people to excuse in her treatment. And it's just awful. So
Well said. Well said. Do you have any thoughts on the father being brought in, Antoinette's?
I was very glad he I was very glad she didn't give a shit about him. Like I thought it
You know
was
what?
interesting.
Me too,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think that too often we have it written in books where a parent who has wronged a child reappears and is like, forgive me. And the child's like, I do. Come into my home and I'll take
Yeah.
care of you. I've made some soup. And it's like, what? We
Yeah.
didn't even know you made soup. How did you suddenly have some? And, but honestly,
Stop
that's,
making soup for your estranged father.
well, that's
Like,
kind of what it seems like
yeah.
always happens, where it's just like randomly like, oh, we're taking in this parent who has never been around, and when you were around in my early childhood, you treated me like shit, but somehow you're back and now all
Yeah.
is forgiven. And it's like, don't like that.
Right.
But this is actually a more refreshing take where it's like, I don't care about you. I don't want you in my life.
Yeah. You
Move
know
on.
what? Oh, and I think it's very interesting that Conway calls out what the dad is doing. Of he lost his parents and he realizes he has no progeny. So all of the sudden she means
Yes.
something, but he was stalking her because he wanted to make sure she had value to him and she
Hmm.
was a good reflection of him. And
Hmm.
it shows that his love would never be
It's
attained
transactional.
because it is yep, exactly, it's transactional and she doesn't need that person in her life. She could do bad all by herself. Like she
Yep.
does not need him. And I like it is a
Well,
discussion
it's
of
also
like
deeply hurtful to think about the relationship you have with your parents and think that you have to be you have to live up to a certain standard. Otherwise,
yeah.
their love for you doesn't exist. Like, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we don't love you. And that's incredibly hurtful.
Well, and this man is awful because he
Hmm.
thinks his word to a random freaking journalist means more than the comfort of the woman he wants to get to know. And so,
Hmm.
do I think it was bad to have a cop pull a gun on someone? Yes, but ACAB is ACAB for everyone, even
Hmm.
Conway. Like,
Yep.
but like it is interesting to have this man come in and have her reject him and just be like, I
Yep.
didn't need him in the first place, and I
Hmm.
still don't need him. And I thought that was the correct answer if we were going
Yeah.
to meet this man. So,
That was one of the more satisfying parts of this book, honestly.
I loved when she kicked him out after one question. Like, are you going to talk to the journalist? Great, you could leave. And he was so offended. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing is like, it's all the men's belief of what they have a right to over the women because
Mm-hmm.
he could have gone into her life and she probably would have accepted him. But now she's an adult woman and she doesn't have to. Like, she is not,
Yep.
he is not owed a relationship to her just because
Correct.
he provided some DNA. So,
Any
any
final thoughts, Hannah?
I don't think I have any. Do you have any final thoughts?
I don't. I'm sure I'll think of like 7 things once we stop recording, but listeners, you'll just have to come talk to me about this book in Discord.
Yeah. And, come join us next week as we do our closeout discussion of Tana French's entire oeuvre of
Yes, the
Dublin
Dublin
Murder
Murder Squad.
Squad. And while you're at it, please make sure you're picking up The Heavenly Sword by Alice Poon for our
Mhm.
indie mission. We're
Indie
very excited
mission.
to be covering this book, so please go get it now and start reading. We also have some great things on the horizon, including a TV
Mhm.
Tuesday of The Last of Us season 2 coming out soon.
Oh.
And
So
uh,
dark.
and next week we'll be having a bonus episode on Tuesday with Ollie Schmitz from Bosworth. Ever heard of them? They will be coming
Boswell's.
on
Boswell's.
Boswell. I'm sorry, Bosworth. I don't know where my brain is going. Boswell Books, but
Mhm.
they will be coming on to discuss book selling and everything to prepare for Indie Bookstore Day on April
Mhm.
25th, I
5th.
believe. Yes.
Mhm.
So
25th.
very excited to have them on. And we will be having some author interviews coming up. So please check those out, including one coming out on April 29th involving the book Imagine a Friend by David Quantick and more coming out soon. So please make sure you're
Mhm.
following along. You can go check out our reading schedule over at owwrpod.com, where we should be having some author highlights coming up as well.
Yay.
Or you can follow us on Instagram, Blue Sky, or Tickety Talk at OWWR Or as Laura said, join us on Discord. And
And
if
YouTube
you
too sometimes.
YouTube too, sometimes we're building that up as well.
Mhm.
And you can
I'm gonna
also
get better
check
at
us.
editing soon, and we're gonna have our faces out there.
Our faces will be out. I'll have to start putting on makeup. And if you wanted to join our Patreon for $3 a month, it gives you a bonus episode. Right now, we're going through the entirety of season 1 of Dresden Files.
What a
But there will
treat.
be, there'll hopefully be better TV in our future. So maybe we'll just
Ugh.
start breaking down Taskmaster over there. And in this
That'd
scene,
be so delightful.
it would be a breath of fresh air. But yeah, we are everywhere. We've got a lot of stuff coming at you. So
Mhm.
please just make sure you're following along. Join
And
us.
thanks
We've
for
got.
listening today.
Bye.
Bye.